Hello everybody, welcome back. So today I'm going to be flying one of my all-time favorite aircraft on this game, the Beech 18, Model 18 made by Carenado. A little bit of an older airplane, only cost me 15 bucks. Very challenging plane to fly, but I absolutely love this plane. Look at this beautiful, beautiful modeling that they did on this plane. And one of the specific things that I wanted to do today was talk about something that I struggled with a little bit when I first started flying this thing, and that is the autopilot. So in this particular model we have this Century 3 really basic autopilot. However, this thing can do some amazing things just as much as any other aircraft. Just using this basic autopilot, if you know how to use it, it's just as capable as virtually almost any autopilot out there. It's just a little bit more labor intensive. Alright, so let's get started. I'm going to take off here and show you the ropes. Also, one thing I do really want to stress about these videos, this one in particular, is that this is not flight instruction in actual aircraft. If you need to know how your autopilot works in your aircraft in real life, read your POH, read your POH, read your POH. This is strictly for flight simming. We just had a recent crash, very sad situation of a woman who crashed and died because she didn't really know how to deal with her autopilot. So do not take this as actual flight training when it comes to autopilot. Your autopilot in your airplane, read your POH. Alright, so here we are climbing up out of 1,800. And the first thing you want to do when you turn this autopilot on is click this button right here. This roll button turns the autopilot on. And when you click that button, what it's going to actually do is hold your pitch heading as well as your attitude. It's just going to keep it right where it's at. As you can see, it kicks in and just holds what you have. Now, the only way to climb or descend this autopilot is to use this pitch function, okay? So you're going to click, let's say you want to climb at 1,000 feet per minute. We're going to hit pitch, right? And then once you hit pitch, now you can control the pitch with this little rotary knob right here, right? So if you want to nose the nose up, as you can see, we're going at 1,500 feet, 1,600 feet per second. We're going to nose down a little bit, so we're going to go down just a little bit until we get to 1,000 feet per minute. And there we are, and we're going to reduce the power a little bit because we're still at takeoff power. Now keep in mind that the only thing that this thing is holding right now is pitch attitude. So it's holding about 7 degrees nose up, and that's what's giving me that 1,000 feet per minute. If I wanted to descend, then you would push the nose down, keep that thing coming down, right, until you can see the vertical speed indicator indicating a descent right here. So now we're going down at, let's say, 1,000 feet per minute, right there. And it'll hold that pitch attitude, which will generally hold that vertical speed as well, depending on how fast you're going. Now keep in mind that we are not in any kind of navigational mode. All we're doing is just maintaining a level bank. There's no heading or altitude or anything else turned on at the moment. So if we want to use the autopilot to, let's say we want to maintain 2,000. So we're going to descend down to 2,000, and then we're going to start maneuvering. Okay? So we need to anticipate that altitude and start increasing or decreasing our descent or ascent rate accordingly. I usually try to do it at least 500 feet per minute, or at the most 500 feet per minute. So approaching 3,000, we're going to hold 3,000. Okay, so as soon as we get to that altitude, we're going to have to click that out button right now. All right, so it's going to hold that 3,000. Okay. Now, if we want to turn left or right, we can use this little roll knob here. So we're going to turn to the right. So we're going to go this way, and it'll bank the aircraft about 30 degrees or so. until it stops. And it's just going to keep on going, until I tell it to stop. And I don't really ever use this function, but if I do, I haven't really found that giving it less bank does anything different. It either does 30 degrees bank or does nothing. And you also have to really anticipate the rollout, because it takes quite a while, sometimes 30 or 40 degrees, to roll wings level. So I'm going to start right now. And as you can see, if I want to roll out on a northerly heading, it takes me probably like 20 or 30 at least degrees to roll out. So now I'm going north, okay? And then if I want to go left, it'll do the same thing, roll into a left-hand turn. And then if I want to go back to center, roll that knob back to the middle, and it'll start rolling my wings level, okay? So that's just one way to manually control your bank, okay? Now let's say you want to hold a specific heading. So I've got a northerly heading lined up at the moment. Let's go opposite the runway, which is 020, okay? What you're going to have to do is make sure that your source selection over here is on heading, HDG, and then you're going to click heading. Now it's going to roll into that heading that you have selected on the heading bug, okay? And there we are. So let's say we want to go down to 2,500. We're going to hit pitch, and we're going to go down, push the nose down with this rotary knob here, say 1,000 feet per minute. There we are. Going down to 2,500. As we approach our altitude, I'm going to arrest my descent rate by giving it a little bit of nose up on the autopilot. Maybe about 500 feet per minute. And as soon as I hit that 2,500 right here, I'm going to hit altitude and hold that. Right there. All right. Next, we're going to talk about the mode selector over here. Now, on this mode selector, we have 5 different modes that we can use for navigation. We have navigation, we have Omni, heading, localizer norm, and localizer reverse. Now, we've already talked about heading. When you have it on heading and you click heading here, it holds this heading bug, okay? Also, if you don't have this on heading and you click heading, all it's going to do is just hold the heading that it's at. It's going to just roll wings level. That's what it does. But let's just say you want to use the GPS, okay? This nav first option here is the GPS, okay? This Omni, that's holding a VOR course. Localizer norm, that's holding a localizer like an ILS. And the localizer reverse is holding a back course. Some approaches have back courses that you need to follow, localizer back courses, and that'll hold a reverse course. So, I have Seattle VOR tuned up in the VOR right here. So nav 2, 116.8. And as you can see, Seattle is tuned up. The nav selector is on VLOC, so it is tuned up to Seattle. So I'm going to see if I can hold this course right here from Seattle. So let's go into Omni. As soon as I select that, it's going to start turning towards my arrow. If you wanted to fly inbound to the course, you see I'm flying away with the little away flag there. If I wanted to fly inbound to the course, you just need to reverse your OBS setting on your HSI here. Okay? And it'll hold this westbound course outbound. Now let's go back to heading, okay? And then click heading here, and it's going to go turn to the right back to a heading of 020 that I have in the bug here. Okay? And let's demonstrate how you would hold a GPS course. Okay, so I'm going to go into my nearest, and I'm going to tune up Bremerton, direct to, enter. So now we have a course going direct to Bremerton. Okay, and we're still in heading mode. Okay, how do I fly direct to Bremerton? Well, the first thing is, because I'm using the GPS for navigation, this needs to be on GPS, okay? And in order to go direct to Bremerton, this needs to be on nav. So I'm going to click nav, and immediately it's going to start turning in this direction towards Bremerton. One thing to remember is that this HSI here, this course, is not slaved to the GPS. You have to manually select your course, which you can do by looking at this desired track right here, 143. So we're going to tune up 143 in the OBS. And as you can see, that's the course that we're taking to go direct to Bremerton. Now we're going to go outbound again, and I'm going to demonstrate how to fly either an ILS approach or a GPS approach. This aircraft is actually able to fly some pretty amazing approaches. It can fly ILS approaches down to minimums just like any other autopilot, but it can also fly LPV approaches down to minimums with autopilot. An LPV approach is a GPS approach. What it stands for is localizer performance with vertical guidance, and it didn't used to be it, but it is now a official precision approach with just as good, if not better, accuracy than a GPS approach, than an ILS approach. Everybody knows the standard ILS approaches that have been around since World War II. GPS approaches have been around probably for about 30 years. LPV approaches have only been around realistically for about 10 or 15 years. But the way that you fly an LPV approach is virtually identical to the way that you fly an ILS approach. So let's tune up an ILS approach. 111.10, which is Bremerton ILS, okay? And as you can see, we have the ILS tuned up right here, and we also have the glide slope. So you can see the glide slope right there, and you can see the localizer right here. Now I'm just going to slow this thing down a little bit so we don't get too far out here. Alright, so now we're going to turn this thing around in heading mode right there. We're going to turn the heading this way. And I'm going to do an intercept heading of roughly about 30 degrees from my course. Okay? Right about there. And then once that's set, I'm going to switch this to localizer norm. Okay? And once that's on localizer norm, as you can see, it's still in heading mode. So it's still holding heading. It's holding that intercept heading, But once I intercept that localizer, it's going to intercept the localizer, and it's actually going to fly the glide slope as well. Now I'm gonna pitch down for a little bit so I don't go above my glide slope. Keep in mind too that this autopilot will not intercept the glide slope if you are above it. You have to be below it and intercepting it from below in order to fly it. In order for the GPS to, the autopilot to hold it. So I'm going to hold 2,000. Okay. And there's your localizer. There's 2,000. I'm switching to altitude hold. So it's holding 2,000 and it's intercepting the localizer here. Here comes the glide slope, and you know that you've intercepted the glide slope when this light turns on, this GS glide slope light turns on. And that's how you know you're actually, the autopilot is intercepted and holding the glide slope. It should be coming on any second now. There it is. As you can see now, altitude, heading, all off. And it is tracking the localizer norm, okay? And it's going to continue to fly this all the way down to the runway. Obviously, it won't land the aircraft for you, but it'll keep that glide slope going. All right, so I'm going to go back around, and I'm going to intercept the reverse course. And I'm just going to show you how reverse course intercept works. Also keep in mind that this autopilot does not have any form of auto throttle. So whatever you do, you're going to have to manually update your throttle. So if you're in a climb, you're going to have to give it more power. If you're in a descent, you're going to have to take some power off. All right, so there's our intercept angle right there on heading mode. And we're going to check this, switch this on to localize reverse. So once we hit this back course on this intercept angle, so we're still on heading mode, it's going to switch to back course and intercept it. And we're just going to hold our altitude here for the time being.
Class Bravo above in 5.8 miles.
There's your back course, and it's going to turn and intercept it. All right, so let's do something a little bit different. Let's do a GPS approach, okay? And let's go back to heading mode. And we're going to program a GPS approach. So procedure, select approach, and we're going to do the RNAV 20, and we're just going to do vectors. All right. So as you can see, we're still above the glide slope right here. So we're going to go outbound just a little bit longer, and then we're going to turn around and intercept again. Now, one thing to remember about this particular aircraft, and I don't understand why they did this, is probably just an error when they created this aircraft, but the glide slope that you see on the HSI here is not from the GPS. It's from the ILS. As you can see, the ILS is still tuned up. even if we tune the GPS, even if we turn the nav selector to GPS, it still gives me the ILS glide slope. So in order to prevent that from happening, I'm just going to tune this to a VOR, right? Okay? It's a little bit finicky. Alright, then we're going to turn this thing around and give it an intercept angle of roughly about 30 degrees so we can intercept this approach course on the GPS. Right about there, we'll say. Okay, so now that we have our intercept angle set, we're going to switch this from heading to nav. Our nav is slave to the GPS. So now this is tracking our navigation from the GPS, our approach course from the GPS. One little finicky thing about this particular aircraft, and this is not the way it is in real life, but in this particular aircraft, the glide slope you get from an LPV approach, see an LPV, doesn't come on the HSI like an ILS. It comes on the backup nav radio. I don't understand why that is. It doesn't make any sense, but that's where it is. As you can see, that's your glide slope right there. This is your localizer, or not your localizer, but your approach course on the GPS. This is your glide slope. Doesn't make any sense. Don't know why that is, but that's the way it is. And you also get a nav flag, even though you are receiving GPS localizer. So just finicky little things like that that don't really make a whole lot of sense, but that's the way that this particular aircraft was designed. So because we're in nav mode, it's not going to follow the glide slope down. We need to be in localizer norm. Even with a GPS approach, you have to be in localizer norm in order to follow the glide slope. And it will follow this glide slope down. As you can see, we just intercepted the glide slope and we're following it down. Once again, not indicated on the HSI, but indicated on the backup VOR receiver. And this LPV approach will take us all the way down pretty much to the runway. And that just about does it for this Autopilot, this Century 3. Hopefully this clarifies any issues that you may have with it. It was a bit confusing when I first used it, so thanks for watching.